corn has 30, 40 different uses. And that's where in the 70s, the American farmers in the Midwest, to find a way to survive, they got into ethanol, and they started making these small ethanol plants. Well, I want to say the other energies that were in the United States, mostly oil and one thing or another, they didn't really like it, so there was a lot of pressure on to do away with ethanol, and then it went way back for years, and then they got going again here. I don't know how many years ago it's been now, but when they mandated it, I guess it's been 5 or 6, 7 years ago. That's what made the American farmer a lot more prosperous, because he had a use for his product. In this country in the 70s, when it was really tough, and corn was set very cheap prices.
Right.
Like I told you before, and that's one of the problems. That's what I said to Katie there a minute ago. That without ethanol, like I told you, Ron, we wouldn't be farming. I mean, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. And the American farmers had a hard enough time as it is. That's why I've kept saying to them, take the CRP land out. There's 30 million acres there. You wouldn't have to be worrying about where you're going to put your next acre of cotton or corn or soybeans or whatever. There's plenty of land, but we just haven't been using it. We've been paying people big money to set it aside, which is, my view, been wrong. At one time, when Henry Ford, the first automobiles was run on ethanol. Again, then when we discovered oil here, then they got to using oil. But ethanol goes way back. So does World War II. The Germans used a lot of ethanol because they didn't have access to fuel, so they made a lot of their own fuel with ethanol. And they talk about why are we burning food for fuel? Besides the 30-some+ million acres that's set aside now, there's a lot of acres that we've just normally let go in the last 40, 50 years because farming hasn't been profitable. Now it's growing up to trees, and it's got to the point where if it continues, people are going to be going into South America and Brazil and those areas where there is room for agriculture to grow in a big way. South America has 250 million acres they can put into agriculture production in a heartbeat. It's all there to plow and put in. They got 500 million acres that can go into pasture. It isn't into pasture land, can be used for pasture land. So if we can't supply the people that are depending on us now, once they move to South America or other areas that have the ability to grow these products, once we lose our markets, we're going to be in trouble like we are with so many other things.
Right.
We can't afford to lose that.
And this is what's near and dear to me, because I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm, and we go through about 55,000 bushel of corn a day. Okay, so in simple terms, we need 50 tractor carloads of corn every day to operate. Some of the things just to take note, and we can touch bases on this as we go along. When an ethanol plant is built, there's literally no jobs that exist as far as this facility is concerned. Okay? So when they built this facility, and you hear a lot in the news today about job creation and the high unemployment rates and all of those things, and you hear them talk about creating new jobs. Mm-hmm. Well, one way of creating jobs is through these economic development agencies. What happens a lot of times with these EDAs is they'll create an empire zone or an economic zone in New York State. And then what they do is their job is to go to these other states and transplant jobs from that state over to our state. That's basically what they do. They don't create brand new jobs most of the time. They do, but most of the time they're just moving jobs from point A to point B, and then this state walks around, pats himself on the back and say, look, we created 100 new jobs. In an ethanol plant, when they build an ethanol plant, these jobs were totally non-existent. We have 50 employees today, the Western New York Energy employees, okay? That does not include the indirect jobs created from this, which goes back to the grower level. A lot of these growers have added another employee to some of them are growing more corn. The more corn they grow, they need more inputs, they need fertilizer, they need seed, they need spraying. So the local crop dealer may have added another employee to handle the extra volume. Because corn prices are good today. As the corn growers make money, they need to spend money for obvious reasons, because the only way to keep making money is to put money back in your farm or your investment. So they go down to the local equipment dealer and spend their hard-earned growing cash to buy maybe a new combine or add on another truck or update a piece of equipment that's been falling apart for years. So that helps the local equipment dealer. And then that back feeds all the way back to the equipment manufacturer. There's 50 people that work for Western New York Energy. There's 8 people working over here to the CO2 plant, and that is a separate business. We lease that land to a private company. They've hired 8 people to run that plant. So directly, there's 58 brand new jobs that were non-existent 4 years ago, or 4.5 years ago. And anything comes in and out of here, we don't care if it comes 50 miles away or 20 or 150. If it comes in here by truck, we classify it as local business. So anytime it's local, you have some of these trucking companies that truck the ethanol out of here. There's 6 drivers that they have put on devoted just to hauling ethanol out of here that didn't exist before. So you see there's getting to be an indirect relationship of the jobs we've created with the businesses around us. These truck drivers, they'll stop down to the local restaurant and buy a sub, or they'll buy a lunch or something like that. So there's a lot of things that tie into brand new job creation. So you can see there's a lot of good things about it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about ethanol.
Okay.
Okay, ethanol. 10% of our gasoline usage today is ethanol. There is an E85. The problem with E85 is really infrastructure, because if you take a lot of these gas stations, you know, they might have 4 pumps and their primary business is E10. They don't want to take one of those pumps out of service, or they may have to put in another tank or whatever. So part of it's infrastructure to get up to the 85 for these new flex fuel vehicles. But for the most part, E10 is the thing. So 10% of our gasoline has ethanol in it.
Okay.
One thing you hear a lot about is food for fuel.
Yeah.
Okay, you hear a lot about that. Okay, the ethanol industry is going to use about 5 billion bushel of corn this year. Okay, so you have over on the left here, or on the right, doesn't matter, you have these activists that all they do is scream is we're starving our country to death. We're taking all our food and we're turning it into fuel. Okay, some of the facts that they don't tell you, of that 5 billion bushel, we return 1/3 of that back into the feed market in the form of distillers. Okay, because you remember we talked about we have 17 pounds of distillers, byproduct of the product of the fermentation product. That goes back out and gets fed to dairy cattle, beef cattle, goes to the poultry industry, the swine industry. So 1/3 of the corn that we use goes right back in to help feed us. And it's a better quality product because it's a higher protein. Depending on what animal group you're feeding it to, it's got a good fat level to it. Dairy cattle don't like vegetable fat, but poultry do, and hogs do. Absolutely no waste to that kernel of corn whatsoever. We manufacture the ethanol, so out of a bushel of corn, we get about 2.8, 2.9 gallons of ethanol. Okay? We get 17 pounds of dried distiller grains. We get 2 pounds of corn oil.
Okay.
And about 14 pounds of carbon dioxide.
Okay.
Okay? Now, it don't equate all up to 56 pounds of corn, but it's pretty close.
Right.
Okay, so that's the nickel tour.
Well, that was awesome.
More like a quarter or a half buck tour.
Yeah.